Hey friends, Mr. Spitzer here, and today is day 9 of our fantasy unit. While we already talked about archetypes before, we were just tracking some specific roles that our characters might be playing. And hopefully you are all a little bit further in your story, so you will be able to determine if that character fits into that specific role. So today's lesson is on archetypes. Now, before I get started talking about specific roles or archetypes that characters play, I want to give a shout out to Josh and Teresa and Mackenzie for routinely joining my office hours to just stop by and say hi and to ask specific questions. If you have any questions about the lesson, please join my office hours. I'm here to help and support you. With that being said, make sure you're watching the videos for the day. I will show you some models. So here I have the graphic organizer from our daily lesson open. I also have my Google form open for the day and a video that I'm going to show you part of. So, archetypes. It says here that our teaching point is that readers notice how stories in certain literary traditions often have similar structures. For instance, fantasy stories often have the same types of characters who each play a predictable role in the story, called archetypes. So we discussed this previously, but what this means is that although stories don't have the same characters in every story, there's roles that characters will fit into, so you can compare these similar roles. And the roles that characters play, we can call those character archetypes. So within a fantasy story, you will probably notice that your fantasy story has some or most of these. And these are a hero, a mentor, an anti-hero, or someone where you can't determine if they're really full good or if they're evil. You're not quite sure. They're somewhere in the middle. A loyal companion, a damsel in distress, a villain, or an evil minion. Now, your story might not have all of these, but I'm pretty sure that your story will contain most of these. So here you can see, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but a model of, as I was reading my fantasy book along with you, I was finding that a lot of the characters within my story were fitting in these traditional archetypes or roles within a fantasy story. So my main character, Davian, is the hero. One of his teachers was his mentor. Caden is this anti-hero. He helps our hero Davian, but we're not quite sure. He does some evil things, so he's kind of the anti-hero. He has his loyal companion, or we can call that like a sidekick. And then there's also the villain and then the evil minions that are helping the villain. So I encourage you to look at my examples, some of the character traits that I inferred and identified within my story. As you're reading your fantasy story, I encourage you to think about all of the characters in your story and what role they play. I want to show you a quick video of a teacher who does a really nice job of explaining some of these common archetypes. And as you're listening to these explanations, I want you to think about the characters in your story that you've been reading about.
So today I'm going to talk about archetypes, which are universal symbols that are then copied and reused often in literature. Archetypes act as this kind of shortcut for authors or storytellers that allows them to create rough outlines of a character that the reader can then fill in using prior cultural knowledge of these archetypes. And I'm going to be using examples from literature and movies. So first we have the hero, and this is the guy that fulfills the task and restores balance. Luke Skywalker restores balance to the Force in Star Wars, and King Arthur unites the kingdom, bringing balance and prosperity. So the next two are subsets of this hero archetype. So first we have the young person from the provinces, and this is a hero that is taken away when they're very young and usually raised by strangers. Later, they return home and as a stranger and are able to recognize new problems and new solutions. Bruce Wayne in Batman begins the loose interpretation of this. Early on in the film, he runs away to Bhutan, is trained to fight evil, and he then returns to Gotham to purge the city of its criminals. The initiates are young heroes who, prior to a quest, have to go through some kind of training or ritual. They're usually very innocent and young at this stage. Two examples of this are Mulan and the army recruits from the Disney movie Mulan, and the Young Mutants in X-Men First Class. Mentors are people who serve as teachers or counselors to initiates. Sometimes they work as role models, and they often serve as a father or mother figure. They teach by example the skills that are necessary to survive the journey and the quest. Cinna acts as a mentor for Katniss in the Hunger Games, teaching her how to act in the interviews and how to carry herself, while Haymitch is a drunker mentor that actually tells her how to survive in the arena. Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid movie is a mentor for Danielson. The hunting group of companions are loyal people who are willing to face all kinds of perils in order to stick with the hero and to stick together. Two examples of these are the Asgardians in Thor and X-Men. Loyal retainers are individuals who are noble sidekicks to the hero. It's their whole job to protect the hero, and they often reflect the hero's nobility. Both of the examples here are from the Batman franchise. Alfred, who could also function as a mentor, and Batgirl and Robin. All of them serve the primary focus of protecting Bruce Wayne or Batman. The friendly beast, these are animals that assist the hero and reflect that nature is on the hero's side. The horse in the Disney film Tangled is clearly on the side of the protagonist, Rapunzel, and acts in very unhorsey ways to protect her. And the wolves in Princess Mononoke are also friendly beasts, at least to San, the girl on their back. They are left.
So as you can see from some of the examples in this video, there are roles that can fit into tons of different fantasy stories, and you might find that some of your characters are fitting in these traditional roles. So onto the fantasy unit lesson document. So we have our form here. You're again filling out your name, the title of your book, and how many pages you read for the day. This is really important as I noticed some people are just listing how many pages they read. I want to know how far you are through your book. As we wrap up our fantasy unit, you should be towards the end. I know several of you have already started new stories, so nice job, Nicholas, and other friends who've read their book. Allie, nice job. The next question, so make sure you're filling out this appropriately and filling out all the pages that you're reading. We should be pretty close to done with our fantasy story. Next question says, who is the hero in your story? What character traits do they have that prove that they are the hero? So this is a two-part question. You need to use complete sentences. I want you to identify the hero, and then I want you to list probably at least 2 or 3 character traits that your character has that prove they're a hero. Think about some of the traits that a hero might have. The next question says, who would be most like a mentor in your story? Remember, a mentor is someone that teaches your character something or someone who your character looks up to. So think of a character in your story that your main character looks up to. And what do they do to act like a mentor? I want you to give me a sentence or two about actions that the mentor does to prove that they're a mentor. The next one talks about a sidekick or loyal companion in your story. In my example, is my loyal companion. He helps Davian on his quest. I want you to think about the character that is always with your main character and that is always trying to help, just like a sidekick would. And give me an example of things that they do in your story to prove that they're a sidekick. Then I want you to find the villain in your story. Most stories, especially fantasy stories, have some evil, either monster or person that causes the conflict or the problem. I want you to tell me the traits that makes that character the villain, and then I want you to tell me what they do in the story to show that they are the villain. Answer this question in just a simple sentence. Does the villain have any minions or bad guys helping them? In my story, there are these evil creatures and monsters that will attack people that help the main villain. But not every story has minions or bad guys that help the main villain. And the last thing I want you to do, it says after reading for 30 minutes, how many more pages do you have left in your book? How long do you think it will take you to finish your story? Like I said, many of you have already finished your fantasy book and have started another one, which is great. I want to make sure that everyone is on pace to finish their fantasy story by the end of this unit. That's why it's so important to keep track here of the pages that you're reading. So just tell me and be honest, how many more pages do you have to read? I'd love to know. Again, if you have any questions on filling out this form or in looking at my example, I have my office hours on Google Meet from 10 to 11. You can join me there, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Take care.